They were able to achieve happiness. The purpose of their life was to give us the chance to do all the things they never could, and they were able to do it here. They would never have been able to do it anywhere else in the world. That's what makes America special. Every country on this planet has rich people. Every country on this planet has famous people and powerful people. What makes us different is that here there are millions and millions of people just like them. Many born here, some who come from abroad, who through hard work and perseverance achieve a life better than the one they were born into and are able to leave their children even better off than themselves. This is what makes America different. And so any time that that is threatened, we have a serious problem. Because without the American dream, we can't be a special country. And today, the American dream is slipping out of reach for far too many people. It's the people that are working as hard as they ever have in their lives. But now they live paycheck to paycheck. Same job they had 10 or 15 years ago. They were actually able to save some money. Now they live paycheck to paycheck. It's the people who took a risk to open up their own business, but now don't have any idea how they're going to stay in business. At a time when more businesses are dying than starting. It's young Americans who their whole lives were told, go to college and get a degree. If you get a degree, you are guaranteed to have a better life. And so they did. They even borrowed money to pay for it. And now they owe thousands of dollars in student loans, and they have no idea how they're ever going to get ahead or how they're going to pay those back. Whatever it may be, there are millions of people in this country who are starting to feel like the American dream is slipping out of reach. And at the same time, they watch as America's prestige on the global stage fades as well. We face more threats than we've ever faced, certainly in my lifetime. More serious threats than we've ever faced. And yet our country feels like it can no longer do what it once did, can no longer impact or influence global events as it once did just not long ago. And the question people are asking is, why are we moving in the wrong direction? We are still the most creative and innovative people on the planet. Our workers are the most productive people on the planet. Why is America on the road to decline? And the answer is because never in my lifetime, or in the lifetime of anyone in this room, has our government in Washington been more out of touch and more disconnected with the lives of our people than it is right now. And that disconnect threatens the very essence of our country and the things that make us special. We are on the road to decline. That is the road that we are on today, and that is terrible news. But I come with good news. And the good news is it doesn't have to remain this way. We can fix this. There is no reason why we need to stay on this road, and there is no reason why the 21st century can't be greater than the 20th century. But we're going to have to make some changes for that to happen. It begins by changing leadership. If you keep electing the same people, we're going to get the exact same result. And I wish I could tell you that the only people disconnected from your lives were all Democrats, and they are. But it's not just Democrats. There are even people in my party as well. Not because they're bad, not because they don't love America, but because their ideas have grown stale. And quite frankly, many themselves have just lost touch with what it's like to owe student loans, what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, how hard it is to survive in business today. Whatever it may be, we cannot get off this road of decline if we keep electing the same people with the same tired ideas and the same disconnect in the way they approach government. That's why I support term limits, because I believe it's important to constantly infuse our process with new people, with new ideas. And that's why I chose to run for president. Because I know the only way we can change the decisions we are making is by changing the people that are making them. And if we can do that in this election, then I believe that the 21st century has the opportunity to be greater than the 20th century. And that the American dream will not just survive, but it'll reach more people and change more lives than ever before. What are those changes we have to make? They're not complicated, but they have to be done. And they won't be easy to do, because there'll be a lot of resistance. Change and turning the page has always met with resistance in our history, and it will meet with resistance again. Number one, we must make America once again the best place in the world to create the best jobs of this new century. The new century brings us a new economy very different than the one I grew up in. In fact, very different than the one we had 10 years ago. How different is our economy? Here's some real examples. One of the largest hospitality companies in America is called Airbnb. They do not own a single hotel room. One of the largest transportation companies is called Uber, and they don't own any cars. In fact, one of the largest retailers on the planet is Amazon, and they don't own a single store. This is a very different economy. And it isn't just different, it's changing faster than ever before. How fast? It took the telephone 75 years to reach 100 million users. It took Candy Crush 1 year to reach 100 million users. And so not only is the economy changing, it is changing faster than ever, and our policies must keep pace with an economy driven by innovation and with an economy that is truly global. Global meaning our customers, our clients, and our competitors are just as likely to be halfway around the world as they are halfway across town. And that means we must be globally competitive. And we are not globally competitive, not the way we should be, because of our own policies. Because we have the most expensive tax code on the planet when you combine it all together on business. We have regulations that make America a more difficult place. We have a health care law that's increasing the price of health care, diminishing the quality, and encouraging employers not to hire more people or to cut hours. We're not fully utilizing our energy resources. And something no one's talking about anymore, we have an $18 trillion debt, which will lead to the most predictable crisis in American history. These are the things that we must fix if we want to reinvigorate our economy and if we want to once again be globally competitive. And we can fix every single one of them with a pro-growth tax plan like the one I've offered together with Senator Mike Lee of Utah. By limiting regulations through a regulatory budget that will now allow the government to raise new regulations and in fact would cap how much regulations can cost our economy. By rolling back these ridiculous executive orders that are holding us back from fully utilizing the energy resources we've been blessed with in oil and natural gas. I'm pleased to see that this week the House is going to take action to lift the export ban on oil. That's a 1970s policy that no longer makes any sense in a country with abundant resources, and that would allow us to create hundreds of thousands of jobs, not just in that industry, but across multiple industries. By repealing and replacing Obamacare with a plan that actually makes sense, that will allow more Americans to control their health insurance choices without having to depend on government to tell you what you need to do. A plan that says this: every American from now on controls their own pre-tax money for health insurance, whether it comes from your employer, your own bank account, or a tax credit. And you can use it to buy health insurance of the kind you choose from any company across state lines in this country that will sell it to you. That is a lot better than what we have right now, and by balancing our budget. And by the way, here's what's driving our debt. It isn't defense spending. It isn't foreign aid, which is less than 1% of our budget. Our debt is driven by the way Social Security and Medicare are currently structured for future generations. Now, when I talk about this issue, it matters to me, as it does to you. I'm from Florida. You probably don't know this, but there are a lot of people in Florida on Medicare and Social Security. One of them happens to be my mother. So I can say this today unequivocally: I am against anything that is bad for my mother. And here's the good news. We can save Social Security and Medicare, and we don't have to change a thing for her, or anybody like her, or anybody near retirement. If you are retired or about to retire, if you are a current beneficiary of Medicare and Social Security or about to enter that program over the next few years, nothing has to change for you, and it shouldn't. But it will look different for my generation and for people younger than me, and it will look different one way or another. It either will not exist or it will have to work differently. And what does work differently mean? Here's what it means. I may have to retire a year later than my parents did. My Social Security benefits, if I've been financially successful, will not grow as fast as my parents grew. My Medicare could very well be the option of taking my Medicare money and using it to buy a plan in the private market that I like better. These are not unreasonable changes, and if we make them, we can save Social Security and Medicare for future generations, and we won't have to change anything for the people on it now. And if we can do all these things I've just described, tax reform, regulatory reform, fully utilize our energy resources, balance our budget, and repeal and replace Obamacare, you will have an economic renaissance in this country unlike any we've ever had. Because see, I always get a chuckle when I hear politicians say, well, when I was governor, we created X number. No, you did not create any jobs outside of government. The private sector creates jobs. The job of our government is to create an environment for the private sector to do that. And if we make America the easiest and the best place in the world for the private sector to create jobs, the American private sector, small business and large, the inventors, the innovators, the risk takers, they will create millions of not just new jobs, but the best paying jobs of the new economy and of the 21st century, and they will create them here in America. That alone won't be enough, because those new jobs will require more skills than ever, which is why the second thing we have to do is we must revolutionize and modernize higher education. Higher education in America today is out of touch. It is too expensive, too long, and too difficult for the people who need it the most. And we must change that. For starters, we must once again teach people to work in a trade or in a craft. Some of the best paying jobs of the 21st century will require more than high school but less than 4 years of college. And for some reason, we stopped teaching people to do that stuff. So we don't train welders anymore, even though a welder makes a lot more than a Greek philosopher. But we don't train welders anymore. We don't train airplane mechanics anymore. I mean, we do, but not enough. There are pockets of excellence, perhaps even here in Georgia, but not enough around the country. And as a result, we are leaving people behind. I believe that we need to start training people to do that work while they're still in high school, if that's what they've chosen to do. So that when they graduate high school, they're ready to go work. Ready to go work right away as an airplane mechanic, in the BMW shop, in the paint and body shop at an auto dealer. These are good paying jobs. And we can graduate people as young as 18 and 19 years of age in this country ready to do that work. If I'm blessed with the opportunity to be president, I will celebrate vocational training. I will be the vocational education president, and we will open up federal financial aid and Pell Grants so students don't have to wait till they're 19 to be able to go to a trade school. They can start going at 16 and 17 so they can graduate ready to work. I also think we need to create more options for people and more competition in traditional higher education. Who does that matter to the most? The people who have to work full-time and are raising a family. So take, for example, a single mother, and she makes $14 an hour as a receptionist at a law firm. The only way she's ever going to get a raise is if she can go back to school and become a paralegal or a dental hygienist or any other paraprofession. But she can't go back to school because all the existing schools would require her to quit her job, find someone to watch her kids while she sits in a classroom for 2 to 3 years to get a degree. But what if there was an alternative system available, one that competes with the traditional four-year colleges? An alternative system that says we're going to give you credit for what you've already learned, for what you've learned through work experience and life experience and military experience. And then whatever you're missing, we're going to allow you to acquire those credits from a variety of sources. Some could be free and online. There are some extraordinary free online coursework now available. The point is provide flexibility and choices and options so you could package learning, a system that says we're going to award degrees based on what you've learned, not how many hours you sat in a classroom. If we could do that, not only would that create more competition and thereby hold down the price growth of higher education, you would open the door to higher education for millions of people. And suddenly, instead of making $14 an hour as a receptionist, that single mother could be making $60,000 a year as a paralegal or a dental hygienist or some other profession. That will change our country. That will change the lives of many, many families across this country. We're still going to have traditional four-year degrees. After all, how would we have college football without them? Go who? Who'd you say? Who are the dogs? I never heard of that. I heard, I mean, I'm aware of I think some sort of college football program here that wears red and black that play Florida once a year or something, but I didn't know, what are they called again? I don't want to talk about it. I know. All right, and I got in trouble last week for poking fun at FSU. So they got mad at me. I said, guys, listen, there's only two things I'm not changing: my religion and my college football association. So anyway, so going back to the argument I was making about traditional four-year degrees, we're always going to have them. And it'll still be the choice for many, many people. My argument is we can't keep graduating people with these degrees that do not lead to jobs, but thousands of dollars in student loans. I owed over $100,000 when I finished law school. In fact, I owed over $100,000 when I entered the Senate. Now, I was fortunate to be able to pay it off with the proceeds of a book I wrote. It's called An American Son. It's available on paperback. But it really is. I'm not just joking. It is available on paperback if you're interested. So that my kids don't have to take out loans. But anyway, all I argue is that before a student gets a loan, the school should be required to tell you, this is how much people make when they graduate from our school with that degree. So you can decide if you want to major in political science. Maybe you're going to law school like I did. But you deserve to know that political science majors make $28,000 on Capitol Hill. Do you want to borrow $100,000 or $80,000 to major in that? You can. It won't be illegal, but at least you have more information available to you. I think we need alternatives to student loans, which is why I've discussed an idea called student investment plans. This is especially good for graduate students. It would allow you to go to a private investment group who would pay your tuition in exchange for a percentage of your income over X number of years. In essence, they would be investing in you the way you would in a startup business. And if you go on to be very successful, they make their money back with a profit. They made a good investment. If you decide to go find yourself and live in a tent for a number of years, they made a bad investment and they lose their money. But at least it doesn't go on your report. And last, I would say for people that already have student loans, we need to make income-based repayment, the automatic method of repayment. Why? Because I'd much rather be collecting $25 a month from a student or a graduate than nothing. If you're collecting nothing, you're ruining their credit. And at the same time, you're not getting any money in to pay down the principal or the interest. These are significant changes, but we can make them. And if we can do these two things, if we can create policies that make us globally competitive again, and if we can modernize and revolutionize higher education and give our people the skills they need, we are going to have an economic renaissance in America in the 21st century unlike anything we've ever seen. But there's one more thing we have to do, and it is the most important thing the federal government does, and that is keep us safe. The federal government loves to be involved in all kinds of things it has no business being involved in. It has no business being involved in K through 12 education, telling states what to do. It has no business being involved in all sorts of things it's gotten involved in. But the one thing the federal government must do, in fact, it is the reason why we have a federal government, is to keep us safe, especially from foreign threats. And today we are not safe. Despite the efforts of men and women in uniform, despite the efforts of men and women in law enforcement, this country is less safe today than it was on the 12th of September of the year 2001. Because the world has become more dangerous. You have a lunatic in North Korea. There's no other way to describe him. A complete lunatic in North Korea, except he has dozens of nuclear weapons and has already developed rockets that can reach the United States. The Iranians, run by a radical Shia cleric, will also develop a nuclear weapon because of this recent deal the president is ramming down our throats. The Chinese are rapidly expanding their military. They're taking over the South China Sea, the most important shipping lane in the world, and they hack into our computers regularly and steal your personal information, the property secrets of our companies, and the intelligence secrets of our governments. The Russians, run by a thug and a gangster named Vladimir Putin, are actively looking not just to divide Europe, but to destroy NATO. This is an extremely dangerous world. And what are our current leaders doing in response? They are slashing the military. We're on pace to have the smallest Air Force and Navy in the lifetime of anybody in this room. Our Army just is losing another 40,000 positions over the next few years. So while our adversaries are growing and growing stronger, we are weakening our defenses. And as I told you earlier, national security spending is not the reason why we have a debt. It isn't. But it will be the reason why the federal government cannot keep us safe. That must change. And how do you make the world a safer place? By having a strong America. When America's stronger, the world is safer. When America's weaker, when America retreats, it creates a vacuum, and that vacuum leads to chaos. Does it mean we can solve all the problems of the world? Of course not. We can't be involved in every crisis or every conflict, nor is anyone asking us to. But I'm telling you, there is nothing on this planet to replace American leadership. In the absence of American leadership, what you leave behind is a vacuum, and that vacuum leads to the chaos we see everywhere. Every part of the world today, virtually every part of the world, has some form of chaos. How do you fill that vacuum? How do you reinvigorate America? You need two things. The first is we must rebuild our military. We must reverse these ridiculous and dangerous defense cuts. And not just to build up our numbers, but build up our capabilities. The threats we will face 10 years from now have to be the response to those threats has to be innovated now. The threats we're going to face in 5 years, 15 years, we need to be investing in the research and technology to defeat those threats right now, and we are not. The second thing we have to have is we must have a foreign policy of moral clarity. And what does that mean? It's not very difficult. It means this. It means your allies know they can trust you, and your adversaries know not to test you. Now this seems like common sense. I only bring it up because today we have the direct opposite. And perhaps the best example of this is today in the Middle East. In the entire Middle East, there is only one country that is pro-American, free enterprise, and a democracy. There's only one, the State of Israel. There's only one. But we are now at a point where our president treats the Prime Minister of Israel with less consideration and less respect than the radical Shia cleric, the Ayatollah of Iran. And that doesn't just have an impact in the Middle East, it has an impact all over the world. Japan and South Korea and our European allies, they see this. They know how popular Israel is in America. They know how much support Israel has in America's Congress. And you know what they're saying to themselves? If America's willing to do that to Israel, imagine what they would do to us. And so we must reverse this policy, this foreign policy, and replace it with one with moral clarity where our allies know they can rely on us, and our adversaries know not to test us. And that's why I believe it's so important that on my first day in office, we reverse this nuclear deal with Iran. And I will. This nuclear deal with Iran is not a written agreement. It is nothing but a political arrangement. It is the lifting of sanctions by lifting the national security waiver of the current sanctions law. And on my first day in office, I will remove that. And I will make it very clear to Iran. As long as you are spinning those centrifuges, as long as you're enriching uranium or reprocessing plutonium, we will sanction your economy. And if you try to build a weapon, we will destroy your weapons program. This is the only way forward on that. So I've just highlighted to you some of our challenges, and they're real, and they're very significant. And yet every single one of them we can fix. That's why I am optimistic about America's future. But I'm realistic about our challenges. I'm optimistic because there's no challenge before our country we cannot fix. There is no reason why we can't reverse this course and place ourselves not on the road to decline, but on a road to the greatest era in our history. But it will not be easy, because change never is easy. And this election is not just a choice between Republicans and Democrats. This election is a generational choice about what kind of country we will be in the 21st century. Will we remain a special country, or will we decline? If we remain on the road we are on right now, we will decline. And we will be the first generation in American history that leaves our children worse off than ourselves. In 230 some odd years of the amazing story of America, each generation has left the next better off. We are on the verge of being the first to fail. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can fix this. But to do so, we must turn the page. The time has come for both our party and our country to elevate new leaders with new ideas and real solutions. For if we stay with the same leaders and the same ideas, nothing will change. Now, every single one of us is called to this task. Whether it's as an activist, a candidate, in your businesses or in your communities, we are all called to do our part. For each of us are the beneficiaries of an extraordinary blessing, the blessing of being an American. It's a blessing I've always taken seriously, because I've always realized that while America owes me absolutely nothing, I have a debt to this country I will never repay. This isn't simply the country that I was born in. It's the nation that literally changed the history of my family. See, when my father was 9 years old, he was a young boy in Havana and his mother died. His family had a catering business. My grandmother, who of course I never met, would cook, and my grandfather would deliver the food to the cigar workers in the cigar factories near Havana. But when she died, they lost the cook and the business was gone. And so my father, at 9 years of age, had to quit going to school and start working with his dad just to feed themselves. He would never go back to school, and he would work for the next 70 years of his life. Now, when he was a young boy and later a young man, he had big dreams, because all young people have big dreams. But his dreams became impossible. And so when they came here to America, my parents found a new dream. And the dream was to do everything they could to ensure that what happened to them never happened to us. That all the things they could never do, we could. That all the chances they never had, we would have. That all the doors that closed for them would open for us. That became the purpose of their lives. And that's the reason why my father worked well into his 70s, on nights, on weekends, on holidays, as a bartender behind a portable bar in the back of a banquet hall just like this. Well, for me, the journey from behind that bar in the back of the room to this stage here with you today, for me, that journey that my family made, that's the essence of the real American dream. That journey is the essence of what makes America special. It's a story we all know, because in this country we are all but a generation or two removed from someone who did that for us. Here in America, every single one of us is but a generation or two removed from someone who made our future the very purpose of their lives. From someone who did for them what my parents did for me. This is who we've been, and this is who we are. And now we must decide, is this who we will remain? And I'm running for president because I believe that not only can that dream survive, But if we do what needs to be done, we can expand it to reach more people and change more lives than ever before. If we do what needs to be done in this election, at this time in our history, the 21st century won't just be as good as the 20th century, it will be better. It will be a new American century, and we will be able to say that we left for our children what our parents left for us, the single greatest nation in the history of all mankind. That's what this election must be about. And so, I'm grateful you would come out to listen to me today. As you now know, because of the changes in the elections and the dates and so forth, this state is going to play a more important role than ever. And so I would be remiss if I didn't take a few minutes or a few seconds to ask you for your support. I know that we have a big field of candidates. 1 out of 5 Republicans is running for president, and it's made it for a very... And I have great respect for the other people running. I really do. I think it takes a lot to go out and run for president. I know how hard it is. They're all out there traveling just like I am. They're all out there taking time away to do what they're doing. I respect it very much. I think as a party, we're blessed to have so many good people running. The Democrats can't even come up with one. But I honestly believe that what I've just talked to you about today, no one else in this race is talking about. This is not just an election about how bad things are. It has to be an election about how good things can be. The issue is not that America is not a great country. It is a great country. There's still no nation on earth I would trade places with. But we have some challenges we have to confront. If we confront them, we're going to be greater than we've ever been. If we don't confront them, we'll be responsible for America's decline. The choice is that easy. It's that simple. It's that straightforward. And it's no different than the choice that every other generation before us had to make. But I believe, in fact, I know we're the only campaign that's describing this election in those terms. And I think that's what gives us a chance not just to win this primary, but ultimately to win the general election, to attract more people than ever to our cause, to the millions of people that are struggling who perhaps in the past have voted for more government, more laws, more spending, because they're desperate to move ahead, because their lives have gotten tougher. We now have a chance to explain to them why our policies are better for them than what the other side offers. But for that to happen, I need your support. And so that's why I'm here today, is to encourage as many of you as possible to join our efforts, not just as a voter. We want your vote, but we want your activism. We want to be able to work with you to attract more people to this campaign, not just now, but also in a general election. These things matter. These elections have consequences. We've learned that the hard way over the last 8 years. We can fix what has gone wrong in this country, but it will take the help of every single one of you here in the state and then across the country. And I thank you for coming today and listening to me. God bless all of you. Thank you.